Look at this hands-free healing. We only just started, but it's pretty good. Good boy. We're almost home now, but I'm so impressed with this dog today. He has been so good. Like, not perfect or anything, had a couple of problems, but overall, so good. And I am so impressed with him. Now we're back home, and he's gonna get lovely play and some reward. You've been a good boy! You've been a good boy! We've literally just got back, so I'm probably kind of sweaty and stuff, but I just want to talk about how impressed I am with this pup today. So we went on a training walk down to the co-op, and it was pretty good. What we did is I put his harness on and we start walking out in harness and collar. I put his vest on. I take it off and ask him to go to the toilet. We're practicing all of that. On the way down, we came across a very barky, reactive dog in front of us. It was quite a while in front of us. I walked a little bit, but the dog didn't stop barking. So me and Pebble walked to the other side of the road to walk on the other pavement and walk past it. And he was so good. We used our new nice, which where I say nice, he looks at me, give him a treat. We do that when we see a scary thing or anything, it's something our trainer advised from our class, and it was really good. So that was good. Then we crossed back to the street that we know because we walk on one side. We haven't actually walked on the other side, so we also handled that well. So we walked back to the other side and we carried on walking. Then there was another dog on the other side of the street. This was a bigger dog, and I mean, I think it was a Labradoodle, maybe it had like the coat, it was a bit bigger than him. It was a bit bigger than the Labrador as well, I'd say. It was quite big. So this dog was actually walking without, they had an owner, but they didn't have a lead on them. So this dog was walking at the other side of the street without a lead on, and just walking, obviously looking everywhere. Very good, didn't try to cross or anything, obviously fine off lead. This dog walked down, and we were walking the other way, and he noticed this dog and did start growling and reacting a little bit, not too much, so I tried to get him with nice and we carried on walking. The problem there was that then this dog on the other side of the street and their owner turned around and started walking the same way as us. Not on the same pavement, so we were here and they were on the other pavement, but they started walking the same way as us, this way, so we were walking this way, and they were walking this way, but then they started walking this way as well. So that confused him and upset him a little bit, so he was a lot more reactive, a lot more distracted. Still didn't bark, did do a little bit of growling. Again, it's not aggression at all, it's nervousness a little bit, also a bit of kind of want to play with the dog. It's just what he does, but he needs to stop. So we carried on walking. He was quite distracted by this dog. He kept looking to the other side, did a little bit of growling. Didn't really want to walk with me. I didn't have him on a head halter, I just had him on the harness and collar at that moment. So I carried on walking, tried to get him to carry on walking with treats. We kept stopping. If he pulled and reacted too much, we stopped and stood there for a minute and I gave him a treat. We did this about 3 times, stopping and starting, and then he was just so distracted, so we just stopped completely. I stood still, fed him treats when he looked up at me, and he stood still in front of me, and then he sat down in front of me. The other dog on the other side of the street walked off up the hill away from us. We stood there for a little bit and he was really good, he got over it. So we carried on, walked to the co-op. On the way past some people, he was really good. And then when we walked, I put his head collar on as we neared the last hill to get to the co-op. This makes no sense to anyone because it was here, but so I put his head halter on and let him go to the toilet before we got there. When we turned a corner, there was a family with children, adults, and a tiny dog, little puppy I think, on the other side of the street. I thought it would be okay, but then they crossed the street and went to walk past us to move on. So I stopped with him. We just stopped and stood still. They had him standing in front of me, and I had a tight rein on him, and I had some treats, and I was, doing them nice. And he was amazing. He, the same as the barking dog earlier, he was so good. He just stood there, kind of looked at me, then looked at Lem a little bit. No barking, no growling, nothing. And this is a family with adults, children, and a little tiny dog. Walked right past us. Brilliant. And then we walked further up. When we went to cross the road, No, that was when I put his head halter on, sorry. So I put his head halter on before we crossed the road to get to the co-op. An elderly man walked past us. He's had some trouble with men, I think, which is due to the lack of good male role models in his life. Same as me. but he was good. So, and then we walked across the road, and just before we got to the co-op, the resident sister from the church, she walked across with her tiny weeny chihuahua. Seriously, so small. These dogs are so small. So she was walking straight towards us. So again, I stopped, and we just watched him walk past. I had him looking at me. He also looked back at the dog. He looked at me for a treat, and so on. This is really good. So then we got to the co-op. Now I still wasn't sure whether we were going to go in or not because he was doing really good, but he had that bit with a dog. And this morning he growled at a person who took him by surprise. So what we did is we walked right past the co-op. Now there was a dog and a little girl just outside who obviously their family were in the shop. So we walked right past this dog, and again I did the same thing. I didn't stop this time because the dog was standing still. The dog didn't react at all, which was nice. So we carried on, we walked straight past the dog. I rewarded him, and then we turned around and walked past the dog again. This time he was on my other side so we couldn't see it properly. He was really good. So I checked inside the court to check it wasn't too busy or anything, and that we had a clear path to go in around out the door, because there's an indoor and exit door, which really annoys me, but whatever. So there was a clear path. Eventually it took a couple of minutes, but I wanted to make sure there was a clear path. So we walked straight in, walked in the door, turned, walked down, turned. This time I paused just slightly when we were near the checkouts because there were some people there. I paused, literally a couple of seconds. I just paused to let him kind of take in his surroundings, then walk straight out the door. He was so good. Again, amazing. I'm so pleased with him. And this is really promising, obviously, because we've taken a huge step back just to make sure we got this down, and he's doing really good. So then soon we're going to start going actually down aisles and stuff, but I just want to make sure he has this down, because I don't want to jeopardize anything. So after that we walked back. I kept his head halter and his vest on because I don't want to, go out shop, take it all off, he's fine, off duty. No, that's not quite how, that will be how it works sometimes, but not usually. No, I want him on duty, focusing, behaviour as much as possible, even without with vest and head halter on, but those are as working gear. So we walked out of the shop, and we walked, so then we walked home. And on the way back, we came across another dog. I had run out of treats, of food, so what I did is we completely diverged the path. We were walking on the path, and there was like an alleyway, and a dog was coming towards us. So what we did, we walked straight off. We walked into a car park just over there, completely out of view, out of earshot, well not really, but just out of the way, completely out of the way, because I did not want to set him up to fail at this point. So we walked completely out of the way, waited till a dog passed, and then we walked all the way back to the path and carried on. Another thing we saw on the way back was a bunch of boys. Well, there was like 3 of them, but boys. This made me really anxious. And like I said, he has a bit of a problem with males, I think. So what we did is, they really confused me. They were on the other side of the road and I just carried on. And then they crossed, but then they stood still. And we were like, we were this far away from them, and they just were standing here. And I didn't know what they were doing. Should I cross? So then they started walking past us, completely ignoring us, which is obviously what I want. So we walked past them. We gave them a little bit of a wide berth, so we walked up to the grass, because there's a path in grass. So we walked up the grass and around them as they walked past us. And he was so good. Considering I didn't have any treats either, I was trying to get him to react to me as if I had treats, of saying nice and good boy. And I gave him lots of physical praise once we were past him. But he was so good, especially considering I was anxious as well. So that was really good. And then the last thing we saw, we walked up the last hill. I took his vest off, let him go to the toilet, and then I put it back on because we're practicing that. At the top of the hill, we came across 2 things. On the other side of the street, on the corner, there was a ginger cat, and on the side of the street where we were walking, and we were just about to turn the corner, there was a pigeon. Now this was really interesting. I was wondering what he would notice, what he would react to. At this point, I didn't have any treats. We were almost home. He had been very good. So I decided to just see what happened. I didn't want to set him to fail. We would have walked backwards if necessary, but I wanted to see. So he looked at the pigeon, and just looked at the pigeon. So I stopped because I don't want to set him up to fail. I stopped and also waited to see if he would see the cat. Didn't see the cat at all, which was really good. It was quite noticeable. Ginger cat on the corner. Didn't move. Wasn't moving, but it was quite noticeable. So, but he saw the pigeon, so we walked a little bit. I stopped. The pigeon flew off. He was, you know, his lead was pretty loose. He didn't try to go after it. He didn't growl. He didn't bark. He doesn't really have a bad distraction. It's just something to look at, which is good. So, pigeon flew off and we carried on walking. We walked all the way home, and here we are. And I am so proud of him today. That was amazing. Obviously, it wasn't perfect. There was a couple of things, like the other dog, a bit of growling. But considering, it's incredible. I mean, I'm really, really impressed. And so he's got some treats in his Kong for being such a good boy. But I'm really, really impressed. And that is why you get through the bad days and you find some good days. Yesterday was a bad day. Today is a good day so far. Obviously, days have a lot of stuff in them. You can't really judge a day by what happens in it. If it's a little thing, but yesterday was mostly a bad day. Today seems to be mostly a good day. He's gonna bark at someone outside now. Anyway, just barking at someone. Yeah, that's it. And today, he was so good. I am so proud of him. And again, this reinforces me, the fact that I can do this if I really try. And that's just what happens. You get days like this and you get days like yesterday. And you just gotta get through them, do the best you can. That's all you can do. So, I've talked for way too long, but I wanted to share that. Bye.